Hello everyone, welcome to Shino's Arsenal Daily, keeping you up to date on all things Arsenal, so make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Arsene Wenger wants to change the offside rule. The Arsene Wenger offside law is being introduced in the 2024-2025 season. It's a possibility. So if the attacker's entire body completely overtakes the last defender, it's offside. But if a small part of the attacker's body is offside, it won't be considered offside. Let me try to get this straight. Okay, I love Arsene, but I feel like we're doing the absolute most here. So the entire body now has to be beyond the last defender. So I still feel as though with angles and the way that the lines are set up, if they don't have the right angle for it, we'll still be having the same conversations around whether or not the full body is beyond the defender or not. But somebody like Darwin Núñez is probably like, this is my jam. You know, even like Kai Havertz, who tends to be offside quite a bit, is probably like, this is my jam. This is interesting. I want to know what you guys think about this. I don't have a strong opinion just yet. I feel like I need to look at it more, but my initial reaction to this is, what if the angles, like they have been, make it difficult to see whether or not the player's full body is beyond, right? We have a difficult time seeing whether or not the entire ball has went over the line. So I still feel like there's going to be some problems with this, but I think what I like about this is it takes away the need to really look for understand the arm and the sleeve and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, you can't score with your arm. And it makes it a little bit difficult and it makes things take a lot longer. But if they could figure out a way to get the angles right, then I think just being able to say, is it the full body or not, is in theory a lot easier than having to see what part of the body and all that kind of stuff. So I want to know what you guys think about this. I'm already seeing a lot of people, saying that big teams or teams who play high lines are just now not going to do it anymore. There'll be more teams playing deeper now because they can't rely on those small margins of offside. So that's like a team like Arsenal, who plays the offside line pretty tight back there. So you guys let me know what you think about this. Again, I don't have a really strong opinion on it just yet, but my initial feeling is that makes sense, but I'm sure there's a way that this will become a mess. Kai Havertz giveth, and then Kai Havertz taketh away. When the news of Nagelsmann playing Kai Havertz as a left back broke the internet, I was like, I need to watch this game. Now, I was just minding my business on a Saturday afternoon. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to watch this game now. Let me figure out a way to watch it, But I needed to figure out a way to watch this game because I have to see Kai Havertz at left back. Germany took on Turkey in a friendly that ended in a 3-2 win for Turkey. And Kai Havertz scored in the first 5 minutes of the game from a cutback by Leroy Sané. And the first thing I thought was, why don't we do that? Why don't we just hit Kai Havertz on these cutbacks? The thing is, though, is Kai Havertz makes these runs all the time. He's often in very decent positions in the box, but his teammates just don't pass it to him. And his movement is one of his biggest qualities. I think our cutback game this season has actually been quite poor. And we are a team that last season really thrived off of finding our eights in Odegaard and Xhaka in those good positions. We haven't really been getting into those positions this season. Overall, I thought as a left back, he defended quite well the entire game. And he was mostly a midfielder, in possession, which makes a lot of sense. And then this happened. Listen, that's a really unfortunate handball to concede. I think that, his arm for me, it's not in an unnatural position unless you defend like this all the time. And I just don't think defenders should be made to defend with their hands behind their back. Your arm being back like this it's not up, it's down. So to me, that's still a natural position. Is he making his body bigger? Yes, he is making his body bigger, but you can clearly tell that he knows nothing about it. He's not even facing that way, right? And so it's a totally unfortunate one. Like, it kind of reminds me, not in the way that it happened, but in the way that I felt about the William Saliba handball against Chelsea, where defenders are in an impossible position now where they're being asked to defend in ways that are really unnatural to them. So they're going to give away these types of penalties more often than they probably should. And that's what leads to the third goal that inevitably gives Turkey the win. Now, I think Trapp, the goalkeeper, should do better. I mean, it goes straight to him. He should be getting that. But Kai Havertz is such an incredibly unlucky player. And my biggest takeaway from this is that Nagelsmann said, who's another really top coach, said that Kai Havertz is an exceptionally good footballer. I have to delude myself, you guys. I have to believe that this guy there's something that Arteta sees in him. There's something that Nagelsmann sees in him. They play him and they trust him, and they play him in positions that don't necessarily suit him on paper, but they're willing to put him in those positions because they feel like he's versatile and good enough to play in that way. And so maybe it's going to take time for those things to show up in an Arsenal shirt. Hopefully the goal that he scored lifts him and he doesn't really think about the handball, because let's be real, like, that is totally unfortunate. No matter how you feel about Kai Havertz, if that's Saliba or somebody that you like, or let's say it's Rice, you're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I would say give Kai Havertz the benefit of the doubt in this scenario as well. But like I said, hopefully the goal that he scored lifts him. Let me know what you thought of his performance, if you saw it, and whether or not you think we have the next Marcelo on our hands. Chido Obi-Martin scored 10 goals against Liverpool. Yeah, you heard that right. You heard that right. Chido Obi-Martin scored 10 goals as Arsenal's U16s won 14-3 against Liverpool. 14-3. I mean, I've seen some crazy score lines, but that is insane. He's only 15, and this is not the first time that I've heard about him. Usually I don't pay attention to the academy too much, but this name has been popping up quite a bit. Obi-Martin scored a remarkable 10 goals for Arsenal as they won 14-3 against Liverpool in the U16 Premier League on Saturday. And according to Goal, the striker has been playing for the club's under 18s, under 19s, and under 21 sides this season, but dropped down to the U16 because those other teams were not in action. It's just crazy. Like, I mean, he's playing well above his level, and then when he plays against the guys that are actually his age, he's just literally killing them. Obi-Martin also scored a hat trick in the under 18s against Southampton this season, so that's when I heard about him the first time, and is eligible for Denmark and England after representing both countries at youth level. He can also represent Nigeria due to his father's heritage. So that's a lot there. I'm sure that if he keeps up this level of performance and keeps playing above his level, that Denmark and England and Nigeria will be trying to get him to play for them. But what I'm mostly, thinking about is, can he be useful for Arsenal? Besides his national team situation, it's like, if this guy keeps it up, we might have a wonder kid on our hands here. I mean, it's you can't always take the goals that these young kids score in the lower levels that serious, but like when there's 15 and they're scoring goals, U18, U19, U21, you have to pay attention. So this is definitely somebody that I'm going to be keeping my eye on. But Liverpool, hold that. Arsenal saves England. Bukayo Saka played 45 minutes against Malta for England, and he got an assist. He got the assist for Kane. What I love most about Bukayo Saka and watching him play for England this time around was that he was in first gear. And as an American, when I say a first gear, I mean like the lowest gear. I know for like some of you guys, the first gear is the top gear. For me, that's the lowest. So he was playing on his lowest gear, right? Bukayo Saka is not somebody that walks around and looks like he's too good, he's too cool for school. Like, that's not what he was doing. But he was giving the energy without giving all the energy, if that makes sense. And so he was playing in first gear, and watching Foden and Cole Palmer try to make an impression, you could just tell that they were trying to show that they were good enough. You know, I think Foden had a good game, but he was a lot more busy than Saka was when Saka came on. And Cole Palmer, his first call-up, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but Saka was giving established player, somebody that knows he's in the team. He didn't start against Malta because he's being rested, because he's one of the big dogs on the team now. And to think about watching Saka in like his first kind of games for Arsenal and first games for England, I don't ever remember him like doing the most. He always kind of seemed like somebody that was so assured and so confident that he didn't have to go out of his way to like trying to show anybody that he was that guy. But he is who our rivals compare their star boys to. Every time that they get a player that they think is halfway good, they start comparing him to Saka because he's him. Bukayo Saka has 19 goals and assists for club and country already this season. And that's not bad for somebody that's being considered to have had a slow start. If that's a slow start, I need to see more slow starts from other people. And there are only 2 players, it's an interesting stat, there are only 2 players who have registered a goal involvement against every Premier League team that they faced. Harry Kane and Bukayo Saka. That's a steamed company that he's in, because we all know, now that he's not playing for Spurs, and we can just say that Harry Kane is probably one of the best players on the planet. You guys, he's our Mo Salah. He's our Mo Salah. I've been comparing him to Mo Salah for a while, not because I think that he's at his level per se, but I feel like he's going in that direction. And one of the things that I love about Mo Salah so much is that I think that he's a very direct and very efficient player. I think his creativity is very underrated. But even when he's not playing at his best, he still gets goals and assists for his team. He still comes up with big goals and big moments. And Saka definitely has that gene. I think where people say that he's having a slow start is he's not playing at his best. But I think there is a distinct difference between a slow start and not quite being at your peak yet. And so I think a slow start is like when people are like, oh my gosh, he doesn't look as good as he usually looks. A slow start would mean he has no goals and no assists. A slow start would be, I don't know, like Rashford. That's a slow freaking start. That one hasn't even left the garage yet. But there's a big difference to me between a slow start and just not being at your peak yet. And I think Saka's very intelligent. I think he understands that it's a long season and he's been dealing with some injuries or some lack of fitness. And so he doesn't want to be ran into the ground or having reoccurring injuries by overdoing it early in the season when he's still getting GA. So for me, he's our Mo Salah. I want us to keep him. I'm sure all of us want us to keep him. I mean, what am I saying? But he's worth like 120 million on the market. But he's worth more than that to Arsenal because his consistency with his fitness and his influence and his end product is something that you're not going to get from many players. I mean, when you think about some of the players that people really hype up, they don't get anywhere near the levels of GA, consistency performances, that Saka gets. And he's only 22 years old. And so they said he needed Champions League. And in his first Champions League game, he got a goal and assist. He didn't really need Champions League, whatever. But he's world class. He is world class. Saka is world class. I really do think that, like, at this stage, we don't need to tiptoe around it. If he was playing for anybody else, if he was playing for Real Madrid or Bayern or whatever, people would be dying for this kid. They'd be making comps. They'd be, oh my God, he's the best in the world. But because he plays for Arsenal, people want to tiptoe around it. But I'm not tiptoeing around it anymore. This guy is world class, and I really hope we win something. and win some trophies, because the only way you're going to keep a player of his level is by winning, you know, and it's just that simple. But this season, I really do think he's going to show his levels once again. Last season was his breakout season. This is the season that's going to establish him as a world-class player. And he's well and truly on his way to that, because 19 goals and assists already for club and country, that's nothing to turn your nose up at. Considering, you know, he's been dealing with injuries as well. He's him, y'all. He's him. Declan Rice was robbed of a golazo by VAR. You guys, I'm still hurt by this. Listen, once this man unlocks the inevitability pack, he's gonna be one of the most complete midfielders out there. Something that I've been seeing online lately has been these comparison charts that some Chelsea fans have been putting out there, comparing Conor Gallagher and Declan Rice. And I don't think everything needs to be responded to. I think you can just remain silent on certain things. I think if you see people comparing Conor Gallagher and Declan Rice, you're dealing with somebody doesn't really have a full deck of cards, at least not from a footballing, you know, opinion perspective. But Conor Gallagher started that game against Malta, and Southgate still felt like he needed to bring Declan Rice in. And when you watch the two play, first of all, they play two completely different positions. One is a center midfielder and another one is a DM. But I just find it very funny that people want to compare a DM to a center midfielder, one that really lacks the end product, any sort of assists or goals in a position that requires you to do so. But they're comparing him to somebody who gets goals and assists from a position that doesn't require it. And just because Conor Gallagher runs around and tackles people and gets his interceptions and tackles in, Declan Rice does that without fouling. Conor Gallagher fouls so much. Declan Rice does it in a clean way where he makes it look easy, where Conor Gallagher looks like he's drowning. So when you use your eyeballs, you can see that there's a real gulf in quality there between Conor Gallagher and Declan Rice. Not only do they not play the same position, but they're not even on the same planet. And so it was funny watching Conor Gallagher struggle to the point at which Southgate needed to bring in Declan Rice to save his ass. He was robbed of a golazo, and I guess my main point here is once he gets that Rodri inevitability gene, which he's already building up, one of the most complete midfielders. One of the most complete midfielders. He has absolutely everything. Jorginho missed a penalty. So Jorginho missed a penalty against North Macedonia in the same stadium he missed from the spot against Switzerland 2 years ago. This is just like, you know, I don't know. I feel like people miss penalties. It happens, but it feels like he misses penalties quite a bit for Italy, and people don't want him on penalty duty. I don't like the way that he takes penalties. I feel like it's so unnecessary. Just hit it in the back of the net. But his little hop, skip, and a jump, it didn't work this time. And Spalletti said that he'd asked Jorginho to take the next penalty, and he will take the next one. But I do feel like people that follow the Italian national team are not happy with it. That being said, you know, Jorginho has really grown on me. And I like him as a character and as an experienced player in our team. So it's nice to see him getting called up to his national team. It's nice to see that he's getting playing time and that he's being respected as the quality player that he is. But if you're going to be missing penalties, they might want to take him off of those penalties. The Gabriels are going to start against Argentina. All three Gabriels are set to start against Argentina. And I am worried. Cutie Romero has a couple of leg breakers in stock after being suspended in the Premier League, so I'm sure he's going to want to issue those out. And if you watch the game between Uruguay and Argentina, you know it was a freaking mess. So this could get ugly because we know about the rivalry. Brazil are on the ropes. You know, Argentina just lost a game as well. So this could get ugly. It really could. So although I'm happy that little Gabi and big Gabi are establishing themselves in this national team, I know it's important for Brazilian players to play for their country and that Gabriel Jesus is going to be fit enough to play. I am worried a little bit about one of them getting an injury or suffering at the hands of Romero. the hack. So I'm hoping for the best, but, you know, thinking from the positive side, all three of our Gabriels are going to be starting for Brazil in a very big World Cup qualifier. And so it just shows how important they are becoming in a side in transition. I've spoke about it quite a few times that Brazil are definitely in transition, and so they need some new faces to pop up and be counted on. Vinny Jr. is going to be out for 2.5 months now. He suffered an injury against Colombia, and Neymar is nowhere to be found. Rafinha's shit, you know. So our forwards have a really big opportunity to be the guys that help them qualify for the World Cup, which I'm sure that they will. But you know what I mean, like be a big part of why they're successful. But Gabi's been getting quite a bit of criticism from their bigger accounts. They've been shit for a while now, and Gabriel was not at the World Cup. He was not a part of that team. So their problems have pre-existed, you know, Gabriel. And I don't necessarily feel like I see a partnership really growing between him and Marquinhos. I think Marquinhos has been beside Thiago Silva for so long that, you know, I don't necessarily know if that partnership is going to work. I just don't see any sort of connection there, like how we see with Saliba and Gabriel that work together like yin and yang. There's nothing there. And so I do think Gabriel's suffering a little bit of just like an unfamiliar territory in a team that's a shambles. And the thing that people were focusing on the defensive quality of Brazil, which isn't great. You know, if you start off a game with Renan Lodi and Emerson Royale as your fullbacks, you're in for a rude awakening. But if you can't control the midfield and you can't control the story of the match and you can't create chances and you don't score goals, and Colombia is getting waves and waves of attack. If you guys actually watched that game, Colombia were the better team for the entire match. From the moment that Martinelli scored that goal, Colombia were the much better side. They were controlling the game. Their midfield was involved. They were creating chances. Luis Diaz had them on the ropes. And so I think Brazil's problems stem beyond Gabriel's defensive abilities. They need help. And so they have a new manager. They have Diaz, who's trying to influence and you know, implement his ways. But for anybody to pick out individuals when we've all known that Brazil have been stinky for a while, how about you keep it absolutely real right now? Brazil have been crap for a while now. Let's keep it 100, okay? Neymar was keeping them relevant. And now that Neymar's not there, you have a bunch of individuals out there trying to make it shake when they need a style of play. They need something that they need to, I think, lower the egos and just get down to freaking basics, like winning the ball back and passing it to your teammate, crossing the ball and getting it on somebody's head. The simple things. You know, I saw guys out there that were trying to do moves that they can't do. You're not like the old teams. You're not like Ronaldinho and Ronaldo and Marcelo. You're not like them. You guys are not. You just need to be honest and say, we're not as good or skillful as those players. So I'm just going to follow the manager's instructions and pass it to my teammate first time. 1-2 touch. I saw Rafinha doing things that made me laugh on the day. So I don't want to hear any crap, okay? If Gabriel doesn't play well, I will say it. But he's the least of their worries right now. That was a little bit of a rant that went a little bit longer than I expected it to go. But it just annoys me how people try to make every single problem for every national team and Arsenal player's fault when we all know that it's more than that. So hoping for the best for Tuesday, hoping that nobody comes back with any sort of injuries, knocks, whatever. But equally hoping that everybody has a good game and that Martinelli can establish himself a little bit further now that they know that Vinny's going to be out for quite a bit of time. And Jesus also gets the respect that he deserves. I think he's very disrespected. I get that everybody gets compared to Ronaldo, and if you're not Ronaldo, you're crap, but he's not. he's a very, very good player. I think a world-class player. Not clinical, but if you play in a way that suits him, he's so useful and so creative and so fun to watch. And so looking forward to seeing him play. And Gabriel, you know, he'll grow on you. You'll start to love him. Trust and believe. And he's a quality player that just needs a really good partner. And maybe Marquinhos just isn't good enough to play with Gabriel. Have we thought about that? Ben White's contract is almost complete. Negotiations between Arsenal and Ben White are continuing. Things are not done yet, but parties are confident. One of our most consistent and underrated players since the beginning, I think. He deserves the contract. He deserves the pay raise. And I look forward to the announcement where he just says, cool. And that's it. We know Ben White. He's a man of very few words, but I like Ben White a lot. I think he's a player that some people feel like it's absolutely okay to say anything about him. And he's one of those types of players that could get slated quite badly by our fan base and nobody says anything. Nobody cares. It's like they stuck their flag in the sand when Gary Neville said that he was crap when he played against Brentford in his debut. And because he's done well since, people have started making up things or pretending as though he hasn't been super consistent and really good for us, which is just strange behavior. Is he perfect? No. We know when he gets into those wide areas to defend, it becomes more difficult for him because he's a center back by trade. If you stick any center back in those wide areas, they're going to struggle to defend. But when he gets in and around the box, he's really good. And he's very good on the ball. He's a very good technical player, Ben White. And he helps that right-hand side really tick. And so I do think that he's really underrated amongst our fan base and spoken about in a way that I don't think is reflective of the player that he actually is. He goes through, dips in form like everybody else. But for some reason, when our players go through dips in form, instead of just saying he'll be back, we decide that we need to make big proclamations about the player or decide that he was never good to begin with or they need to be sold or benched or whatever. Ben White is such a quality player. For $50 million, that seems like a steal at this stage, when back then that was expensive for Arsenal, And so I've loved these last 3 years with Ben White. I really have. I think when people say that he was a crap center back as well, that's revisionist history. He was not. A lot of us actually really liked the combination of Ben White and Gabriel. And why wouldn't we? A more calm, cool, collected technical defender with a more aggressive, defender's defender, and Gabriel works really well for Arsenal. So it's just the difference between Saliba and Ben White. We know what those differences are. He's faster, stronger, bigger, Saliba's damn near world class, So I don't think he was moved out of center back because he wasn't good at it. I don't know why I keep hearing people say that. That's so stupid and not true. I just think that this has worked out in a way that really suits Arsenal. And we always play in a back three in build-up. And so it doesn't get much better than Ben White, Saliba, and Gabriel, really. And it just provides a really good platform for our players ahead of them. And so I'm super happy to see that we're getting Ben White on a new deal and he's coming into his prime now. And I'm happy that he doesn't play for England because he's one less player I have to worry about during an international break. I know right now Ben White is sitting around hanging out with his wife and, just being himself, probably gardening, because he's just that guy, So love Ben White, excited about the new deal. And again, looking forward to the announcement. All right, you guys, hope you enjoyed. What did I just say? Did I just say, all right, you guys? I think that, because that's what I meant to say. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this little update, little bit of Arsenal news on your Sunday. Working on a show later on today. I hope you guys are around, want to do some transfer news. I have some transfer news right here on my notes, but this show is already long enough as it is. And if I don't tease something, you guys won't come back. So I know you guys probably want to talk about Douglas Luiz. You want to talk about Ruben Neves, Thomas Partey, Ousmane Diomande. All of those things we'll talk about later on today, so make sure you guys check out that. Make sure you guys are subscribed so you do not miss another show. And yeah, look forward to this next week coming up. I hope you guys had a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.